I was in the clinic's waiting area when my phone buzzed. Angela, my only child, flashed on the screen. Her voice sounded unfamiliar, clipped and frosty. "Mom, we're flying to Europe tomorrow. I already sold the beach house and the truck. We needed the cash. Bye." She ended the call. 45 years of raising her, of skipped meals, double shifts, and every sacrifice a mother can make. And she tossed me aside like yesterday's junk mail. I didn't cry. I drew in a slow breath and, to my surprise, I smiled. There was one thing my dear Angela did not know. My name is Antonia Brooks. I'm 71. Until that call, I believed I understood my daughter. 6 months earlier I'd become a widow. Robert, my husband of 45 years, died of a heart attack over breakfast. The same breakfast ritual we'd shared since our wedding day. He had poured my coffee, added cream, kissed my forehead, and whispered, "Good morning, my love." Those were the last words he ever said to me. After the funeral, Angela was suddenly present. She came by 3 times a week. She helped choose the casket, stood beside me at the cemetery, pushed the cart at the grocery store. She even urged me to book a full checkup. "You have to take care of yourself now, Mom," she'd say with that sunny smile I thought was love. I understand now it was convenience. The beach house, our little haven, was never just wood and paint. Robert and I bought it when Angela was 15, saving every dollar, giving up vacations, pinching pennies on groceries. Every summer we lived there, birthdays with sticky frosting, Christmases with salt air and twinkle lights, boyfriends who came and went until Edward stayed. I cooked, I cleaned, I washed sandy towels until my knuckles stung. It was where our family history lived. To Angela, it was apparently just a price tag. And that truck, Robert's old Ford, he treated it like a living thing. Sunday washings, careful oil changes, always parked under the same maple so it wouldn't bake in the sun. The seatbelt still smelled like his aftershave. Angela knew that. I stayed seated on that hard, green chair among coughing strangers and outdated magazines, and, for the first time in months, I didn't dissolve. A curious calm slid over me. I remembered something I'd let grief erase. 3 days before he died, Robert had pressed a manila envelope into my hands. "Antonia, tuck this in your dresser drawer. If anything happens to me, open it when you're ready." Not before. I'd stashed it away and, in the storm of mourning, simply forgot. But it was waiting for me, like a lighthouse. Back home, a nurse called my name. The doctor peered into my eyes, listened to my heart, and told me I was doing well for my age. "More sleep, better meals," he said kindly. I nodded, but my mind was already miles away. On that envelope, on the ice in Angela's voice, and on Edward, who had never bothered to hide his dislike for me. I shuffled to the bus stop. No car now, remember, and oddly, I felt almost poetic. My daughter believed she had stripped me bare. She didn't know that Robert had always played a longer game. On the bus, I claimed a window seat and watched the city spool past. Brick houses with laundry lines, neon storefronts, harried pedestrians with private catastrophes. I had one too, and I was about to unbox it. At home, I went straight to the bedroom. The drawer slid open, and there it was, the manila envelope with my name in my husband's tidy script. My hands trembled, but it wasn't fear. It was the sense that a door was about to open. Dusk pooled in the corners of the room. The once frightening shadows felt like familiar company. I sat on the bed we had shared for decades and eased the flap open, as if lifting the lid on a birthday present. What lay inside stopped my breath. There were deeds, bank certificates, corporate papers, and a letter in Robert's unmistakable hand. "My dearest Antonia, if you're reading this, I'm no longer beside you. Forgive me for the secrecy. I wanted to spare you worry. Over the years, I put our savings into properties and a few businesses. The beach house isn't the whole story. We own 6 other properties, including the apartment building where Angela and Edward live, and shares in 3 companies worth more than you'd guess. You have always been rich in my eyes. Now, on paper you are as well." My fingertips tingled. There were titles to houses in different neighborhoods, a downtown condo, a small coastal motel, and yes, the 20-story building where my daughter lived. Robert had kept ownership tucked inside a company name I had never heard. According to the documents, I was the sole heir of that company. Nestled among the deeds were bank statements from accounts I'd never known existed. The numbers seemed unreal. Robert had driven a bus for 40 years, yet he had been quietly brilliant with money. Every dollar we saved, every sacrifice we made, he'd turned into more, silently, carefully, lovingly. He wrote that he'd kept our wealth private because he wanted Angela to love us for who we were, not for what we had. If she knew, he wrote, it would change her. How bitterly ironic. She'd treated us as though we had nothing while we had everything. That night, I wandered the house. Touching the nicked dining table, the old lamps Angela called, dated, the photos along the hallway. In one she's 5, perched on Robert's knees, laughter exploding from her tiny mouth. When did the child with the shining eyes grow into a woman who could be so cold? At dawn the phone rang, Angela again. Her voice came softer this time, syrup over steel. Mom, just letting you know we transferred the money from the house and truck. We deposited your share. It's not a lot, but it'll keep you going for a few months while you find something smaller. My share. I kept my tone even. Of course. We gave you 30%. That's fair. Right? Edward needs capital for a European investment. Huge opportunity. 30% of what was already mine. How generous. When do you leave? I asked. This afternoon. 6 months. Maybe longer. Don't worry. We'll help you look for a place when we're back. Something that fits your needs. Fits my needs. As though she knew them. Safe travels. Angela, I knew you'd understand. You've always been so compassionate. Love you. Click. I stared at the silent phone and, to my own surprise, laughed. Not a polite chuckle. A clean, cathartic laugh that shook dust from corners grief hadn't reached. She had robbed me, banished me from my own things, patted me on the head, and sailed off to chase a mirage. It wasn't the money that stung. It was how easily she erased me. I logged into my account. The deposit sat there. Respectable to the untrained eye and insulting to mine. They'd sold the beach house fast and cheap, the truck for pennies. That afternoon I watched from behind the curtain as Angela and Edward heaved suitcases into a taxi. He strutted with 2 oversized bags. She cradled an expensive carry-on. They kissed with the self-confidence of people who believe consequences are for other people. They didn't glance up at my window. I spread Robert's papers across the kitchen table and weighed my choices. I could call a lawyer and undo everything, but there was a better way, one that taught rather than merely punished. I phoned Mr. Peterson, the attorney who had handled Robert's will. He'd shaken my hand at the funeral and told me to call any time. Mrs. Brooks, how are you holding up? Ready to discuss some documents my husband left. I need guidance. Come in tomorrow morning. For the first time in months, I slept without that stone in my chest. I dreamed of Robert in his armchair, newspaper open, eyes crinkling when he saw me. It's time, my love, he said. Time to stand up for yourself. I woke not happy, not sad, something else resolved. I chose my wine-colored dress. Robert always said it made me look elegant, tamed my hair, and added a touch of lipstick. The woman in the mirror looked like someone I once knew, strong. Mr. Peterson's office sat in an old marble building with tall windows. He greeted me warmly, but when I slid the envelope across his desk, his eyebrows climbed. Mrs. Brooks, this is substantial. Your husband was very savvy. Legally, everything points to you as the rightful owner. The beach house sale, I asked. Fraudulent. Angela had no authority to sell it. We can reverse that immediately. We can also pursue charges for fraud if you wish. No courts, no headlines. I want this handled quietly. I need control restored, especially over the building where my daughter lives, and no one can know I'm behind it. Can you do that? He studied me for a heartbeat, then nodded. Discreetly. Yes, it will take a few weeks. Do it. When I left his office, the city felt new. I wasn't drifting anymore. I had a compass. The next weeks were strangely theatrical. Publicly, I was the pitied widow the neighborhood whispered about. Privately, I directed a careful recovery. Mr. Peterson phoned with steady updates. I stayed in my house, mine despite what Angela imagined, and kept a morning routine: breakfast at the old table, a walk past hedges Robert had trimmed, polite chats with neighbors whose sympathy was edged with curiosity. Antonia, dear, said Aurora from next door, meeting me at the fence while I watered my roses. Is it true Angela's off to Europe and left you alone? She and Edward have business there. Oh, sweetheart. And how will you manage? We all know Robert didn't leave much. If only you knew. I'll manage, Aurora. Can I bring a casserole? Do you need rides? You're kind. I'm fine. Compassion mixed with gossip. People love a neat story. I let them have one. A Wednesday call from Mr. Peterson broke the rhythm. Good news. The beach house sale is void. Buyers were innocent. They'll be reimbursed. Title returns to you. Excellent. And the building. Administrative changes to place direct control in your hands are underway. 2 weeks. Perfect. 3 weeks passed without a word from Angela. No calls. No postcard from Paris. In her mind, my usefulness had ended when the bank transfer cleared. That, too, would change. I took the bus to the coast to see the house. There it stood, quiet, cream-painted, the porch facing the patient ocean. Someone had added pots of geraniums. I sat on the curb and let memories wash over me, little Angela racing toward the water, Robert at the grill, teenagers tracking sand through the kitchen, Edward charming and hollow as a seashell. The sum of it all, reduced by my daughter to a quick infusion of cash. An older gentleman stepped onto the porch and noticed me. Ma'am, are you all right? Yes, I said, just remembering. I knew the former owners. Shame about the sale, he said. We were told the elderly lady was very ill and needed to sell fast. Turned out it wasn't legal. We had to give it back. I'm glad you didn't lose your money. So are we. We love this place. So did we, I murmured after he went inside. That night I rang Mr. Peterson again. One more thing. The truck, I want it back. That's trickier. Your daughter used a power of attorney, signed by you after Robert's death. The memory stung. Papers Angela slid across my table, for the funeral arrangements. And my numb signature. Can we challenge it? Possibly, on grounds of deception. We'll try. My days split cleanly down the middle. Widow in the sunlight, businesswoman by afternoon. I learned about amortization schedules and LLCs, about why Angela's building threw off more profit than its rent roll suggested, and about Edward's debts stacked like crooked towers. He'd taken loans against an apartment he didn't actually own. When the banks connected the dots, they wouldn't be amused. Friday, Mr. Peterson called with a smile in his voice. All properties are under your direct control, Mrs. Brooks. And the truck. We located the buyer. He agreed to return it for a small reimbursement. Wonderful, I said. One more task. Send my daughter a letter. What kind of letter? An eviction notice. Silence. Stretched. Are you certain? Absolutely. She taught me my place with a 2-minute call. Now she can learn hers with 30 days' notice. Shall I forward it to Europe? No. Deliver it when she returns. I suspect that'll be sooner than she planned. I was right. That afternoon Aurora burst through my gate with news. Antonia! My brother-in-law at the bank says Edward's in a mess. Loans he took, turns out the apartment isn't his. They're investigating. People say Angela's flying back to sort it out. How unfortunate, I said. Inside, a wheel clicked into place. That night I sat on the porch with tea, the stars pricking a velvet sky. Robert used to say the stars were the souls of those who had lived well, keeping watch. I looked up. Thank you, I whispered, for protecting me even now. The next morning Mr. Peterson called early. Your daughter landed today. Alone. Alone. Rumor says Edward stayed behind. Big argument. Send the letter. It'll be in her hands this afternoon. And so the first piece on the board moved. Angela came home to the city on a Tuesday night. I didn't need a calendar. Aurora's neighborhood radar confirmed it the next morning. She slipped in with one suitcase. Aurora whispered at my gate, eyes bright with gossip and worry. Looked like she cried the whole flight. And the doorman says she didn't even have her keys. Superintendent had to let her in. So Edward had kept the keys, or Angela had learned something ugly and ran. Either way, my daughter was back on our soil, and an hour later Mr. Peterson phoned to say the letter was delivered into her hands. We'd given her 30 days, the lawful minimum. Are you sure, Mrs. Brooks? He asked again, as though a mother's resolve might collapse at the last minute. As sure as she was when she told me to find somewhere that suits my needs. I barely slept that night, picturing the moment she unfolded the paper. Confusion bending into disbelief, disbelief hardening into panic. She would think it a mistake, a scam, even a prank. And then she would start making calls. At 8 on the dot, my phone rang. Desperation has a way of waking early, Mom. Her voice was thinner, raw around the edges. Good morning, darling. How was Europe? I don't have time for this. I got a letter yesterday. It says I have to vacate my apartment in 30 days. It's from a company I've never heard of. Hold on. Robert Investments, Inc. Do you know this company, Robert? Even from the grave, he had a way with poetry. I've never heard of it, I said, letting the words sit. Are you sure it's legitimate? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Her breath hitched. Edward left me, Mom. He stayed in Paris. She swallowed, with someone else. And now this. So the rat jumped ship when the food ran out. I'm sorry, Angela. Where are you now? At the apartment. For now, can I come over? I don't have anyone else. The irony rang like a church bell. When she'd had everything, she hadn't needed a mother. Now, stripped to the bone, she remembered I existed. Of course. I'll put coffee on. An hour later, she stood in my doorway, smaller and thinner than the daughter I'd watched glide into a taxi weeks earlier. Her expensive blouse creased, hair unbrushed, eyes swollen. For a second, she almost hugged me, then the memory of how she'd left held her still. Come in, honey, I said. Coffee, please. Oh, we sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I had laid out deeds and bank statements like puzzle pieces. In that chair, she looked like the Angela who once confessed about cheating on a spelling test, stubborn chin, trembling lip. I was awful to you, she said without preamble. I'm ashamed. It's done, I said gently. No, it isn't. I sold the beach house. I sold Dad's truck. I talked to you like, her voice cracked, like you were a problem to be solved. What happened with Edward? He ran off with a waitress half my age. There was never any opportunity in Europe. Just a scenic escape route from his debts. And Mom, there are more than I knew. He took loans with the apartment as collateral. Apparently the apartment isn't even his. She laughed once, short and bitter. How is that possible? Property can be complicated. I said, the truth wearing a veil. The banks are breathing down my neck. Since we're married, they say I'm responsible. And now this eviction notice. I don't have a job. I don't have money. I don't know where to go. Real tears fell hot, unguarded, not the showy kind. Something in me softened, then pulled itself upright. My heart could hold her and still hold the line. Have you spoken to a lawyer? I can't afford one. We burned through everything. Edward took what was left when he disappeared. What will you do now? I was hoping maybe I could stay here, just for a while, until I find work in a room somewhere. There it was. The question my plan had been steering toward. This will always be your home, I said. Shock flickered across her face. After what I did, you are my daughter. That doesn't expire. She stood and hugged me then, sudden and fierce. The embrace of a drowning person who has discovered a dock. I hugged her back, not with the gullible love that makes the same mistake twice, but with a steadier kind, calm, measured, watchful. I'll find a job, she promised. I won't be a burden. We'll worry about that later. Rest first. That afternoon she returned to the apartment to gather a few things. I watched sunlight creep across my kitchen floor and thought about how easily the first act had gone. She had arrived exactly as planned, emptied out, humbled, unaware that the stage props had been moved behind the scenes. Let her settle, I thought. Let her exhale. Then we teach. That night I phoned Mr. Peterson. One more assignment, I said. I want a full map of Edward's debts, who, how much, and the quickest legal route to cut Angela out of liability. It'll take time, he cautioned. I have patience, and I need this done in absolute confidence. Understood. May I ask your endgame, Mrs. Brooks? To save my daughter, I said, but first to let her meet the ground. Angela moved in the next day. 2 suitcases and a cardboard box. That was everything that survived the bonfire of her pride. I watched from the doorway as she tucked clothes into drawers she hadn't used since adolescence. Humiliation hung over her like a too-heavy coat. Mum. She appeared in the hall holding a small manila envelope. I found this in the apartment. It was stuffed among Edward's files. It has your name on it. My pulse jumped. Another envelope, Robert's handwriting again, same careful loops, but the paper was newer, smaller. Maybe Edward found it after the funeral and never gave it to me. Angela said uncertain, "May I?" Inside lay a short letter and a tiny brass key. "Antonia, if you're reading this after opening the main envelope, it means our girl is in trouble. This key is for box 247 at the Central Bank, downtown branch. You'll find something that can help, but use it wisely." Angela read over my shoulder. A safety deposit box? Dad had a box. Why didn't he tell us? I never mentioned it. I lied seamlessly. "It might be nothing. A few papers, or something we could use," she said, hope rising like a fever. "Can we go tomorrow?" "What can?" That night she cooked, trying to repay me with a pan of over-salted pasta and a kitchen left a little messy. She talked in halting detail about Europe, the fabricated venture, the arguments, the slow dawning that Edward had been playing chess while she brought checkers. The more she spoke, the more I heard a new timbre in her voice, shame without excuses. "I don't just feel stupid," she said quietly. "I feel wrong, like I traded my compass for a shiny rock. Love can blind good people," I said. "What matters is what you do when your sight returns." The next morning we sat under humming fluorescent lights while a bank clerk checked forms and signatures. The vault door rolled open and we were led down a corridor that smelled faintly of metal and polish. Box 247 slid out with a weighted whisper. Inside, velvet pouches nestled beside another letter and a typed inventory. Angela's breath hitched. Necklaces heavy with pearls and stones I could barely name. Rings with family histories. Bracelets that caught the light in a way that made my chest ache. A lifetime of careful purchases and inherited treasures, wrapped in quiet. "Mom," she whispered. This is real money." Robert's note listed origins and appraisals. The total hovered around $200,000. "What do we do?" she asked, eyes wide. "We could sell some, get the beach house back for you, pay down the worst of the debts." Even now, her first reflex was to triage Edward's fires with my kindling. "Think carefully," I said. "Once sold, heirlooms don't return. What choice do I have? If I don't pay something, the banks take everything." She swallowed. "And legally, I'm tied to him whether I knew or not." Though we took the jewels home, she spread them on the table, lifting each piece as if it might tell her what to do. The sight of our history arranged like merchandise made my throat tighten. That evening, my phone rang. "Mrs. Brooks," Mr. Peterson said. "I have a preliminary read. Edward is in deep, north of 200,000 across banks and private lenders. Worse, we found falsified documents with Angela's signature. Can we free her? If we can prove fraud and coercion, yes, but it'll be expensive. Specialists, filings. How expensive? 50,000 give or take. No guarantee." "Proceed," I said. "And don't tell her." "Not yet." I hung up to find Angela staring at Robert's ring, my engagement ring, glinting softly in her palm. "What are you thinking?" I asked. "That I turned a life into numbers," she said, voice husky. "And that Dad deserved better from me." "People fail," I said. "It's what we do next that counts." The next days became a hard apprenticeship. Angela visited jewelers, haggled with sober-faced buyers, and learned the terrible arithmetic of sentiment versus survival. She kept my engagement ring and her grandmother's little necklace. Everything else she converted into stacks of bills that looked obscene on our worn tablecloth. "I got 180, she said one afternoon. "Less than the appraisals, but enough to keep wolves from one door." "Are you sure?" "I don't have the luxury of not being sure." She laid out debts in careful piles, prioritizing those anchored to collateral. She signed up for every interview she could find. 2 places refused her outright because of the pending legal mess. A third offered part-time night cleaning. She took it. "Can you handle the work?" I asked. "I'll learn," she said simply. When she left for her first shift, Aurora came by and sat at my table, fingers tracing the rim of her mug. "Did you know she'd come back like this?" she asked softly. "I knew she'd come back," I said. "She's different, Antonia. Not just sad, different, quieter. Like someone who found the edge and stepped back. She's learning respect, I said, for people, for effort, for what can't be put on a price tag. Close to midnight, Angela returned smelling of disinfectant and cold air, her hair tucked into a messy knot, cheeks wind-chapped, and standing straighter than I'd seen in weeks. How was it? Hard. But the women were kind, Mrs. Johnson showed me how to save my back and get floors streak-free in half the time. She smiled, small and real. She also asked me why I was there. I told her the truth, that I'd been handed every chance and threw them after a man who didn't deserve them. What did she say? She said, "Then you know where the road starts." That's something. I watched her pour a glass of water, hands steady. The fall had hurt. The climb was making muscle. The next morning Mr. Peterson called again, voice bright. "We found Edward in Paris. He's trying to anchor himself with a sham marriage. More importantly, we have evidence he forged Angela's signature intending to flee. With this we can unwind her liability." I closed my eyes. Relief came like warm rain. "Begin immediately," I said, "and not a word to her until it's done." "Yes, ma'am." Angela glanced up from a spreadsheet of balances. "A woman asking for Mrs. Davis," I said lightly. "Wrong number." The lie slid out easily now, not out of malice, but to protect the shape of the lesson. Each day taught her something money could never buy. Each night measured how far she had traveled from the girl who traded love for leverage. 2 weeks later she came home footsore but glowing. "I got through 3 interviews," she announced. 2 rejections, 1 maybe. It's clerical work at a community clinic. "You'd be good at that," I said. "I hope so. But I'm not waiting around. I'm keeping the night job for now." And there, in the tired determination of my daughter sweeping office floors and dreaming of clinic desks, I saw the outline of the woman Robert, and I had hoped we were raising. Angela's days fell into a rhythm. Mornings filled with job applications, evenings with the sound of her keys clinking softly as she returned from the night shift. She looked exhausted, yet there was a new steadiness in her movements. One night, as she massaged her sore wrists at the table, she said quietly, "Mom, I want to tell you something." "What is it, dear?" "Mrs. Johnson, the woman I work with, told me something that stuck. She said there are 2 types of people who end up cleaning offices at night, those who never had chances, and those who had chances and threw them away." Angela paused, her eyes filling but her voice steady. When she asked me which one I was, I told her the truth. I had every chance, and I threw it all away for the wrong man. I didn't say anything right away. Sometimes silence teaches better than speeches. Angela gave a small, shaky laugh. "Ms. Johnson smiled and said, "Then you're 1 step ahead of most, because you know where you went wrong." I smiled. "She sounds like a wise woman." "She is," Angela replied, "and she made me realize that everything I lost wasn't taken from me. I gave it away. That night, I went to bed thinking how strange life was. The same woman who had once treated me like a burden was now rediscovering her worth through humility and sweat." A few mornings later, the phone rang. It was Mr. Peterson, his voice bubbling with excitement. "Mrs. Brooks, we've completed the case. We have proof, beyond question, that Edward forged your daughter's signature on multiple documents. Angela is free from every one of those debts." Relief washed through me like warm sunlight. "That's wonderful, Mr. Peterson. Start all the legal closures immediately." "Should I inform Miss Brooks?" "Not yet," I said. "I'll tell her when it's time." He hesitated. "You've been remarkably patient, Mrs. Brooks. Most parents would have rushed to save her the moment she returned." "This was never about saving her from debt," I said softly. "It was about saving her from herself." When I hung up, I found Angela sorting the remaining bills into neat piles, her face wary but calm. "Who was that?" she asked. "Just Aurora," I lied easily. "She wanted to borrow a recipe." Weeks passed. I watched my daughter rebuild herself one quiet decision at a time. She budgeted her tiny earnings, cooked simple meals, and kept her room tidy. Sometimes when she thought I wasn't watching, she'd touch the framed photo of Robert on the hallway wall and whisper something under her breath. Then one afternoon, she came home beaming. "Mom, I got the job at the clinic. It's part-time for now, but they said if I work hard it could become full-time. That's wonderful, Angela. Her joy dimmed slightly. It doesn't pay much. Not compared to what I used to have. Maybe not, I said, smiling. But it's honest work and it's yours. That night, while we ate soup at the same old table, Angela spoke again, her tone softer than I'd ever heard. Mom, I need to say this. These weeks have been the hardest of my life, but I think I finally understand what matters. It's not the house or the car or the fancy things. It's people who stand beside you when everything falls apart. I met her eyes. Go on. You had every reason to hate me, and yet you took me back. You gave me a bed, food, and patience. I don't deserve it. I reached across the table and took her hand. You've already started earning it back. But I haven't forgiven myself, she whispered. Not until I prove that I've changed for real. The next morning, Mr. Peterson called again. Everything's finalized, Mrs. Brooks. Your daughter is officially free of debt. Would you like me to arrange a meeting to explain the details? Yes, I said, my heart both heavy and light. It's time she knows the truth. A Friday came bright and cool. Angela wore her best outfit, the same one she'd worn when she married Edward. It hung a little loose on her now. I told her we were meeting a lawyer who might help her with her financial problems. Mom, I don't have money for a lawyer. Don't worry, darling, just come. Mr. Peterson greeted us warmly. Miss Brooks, Mrs. Brooks, thank you for coming. Angela fidgeted in her chair. I'm sorry if I can't pay you right now. I just want to understand what's happening. He smiled. You don't owe me a cent, but you do need to see this. He handed her a thick folder. Angela opened it, scanning the papers, her brow furrowed. I don't understand, she said. This says Edward forged my name, that I'm a victim of fraud, and that all the debts are cleared. That's correct, said Mr. Peterson. We've been investigating for several weeks. Angela turned to me, bewildered. But how? Who paid for this? I couldn't afford this kind of lawyer, I exhaled slowly. I did. Her eyes widened, Mom. There's more you should know, I said. Or Mr. Peterson. He slid a second folder across the desk, thicker, heavier. Angela opened it and her breath caught as she read through pages of deeds, bank statements, and certificates. These are properties, investments, company shares, and they're all in your name. They're mine, I said. Your father left them to me. Her voice trembled. You mean when I sold the beach house? You sold something that already belonged to me, I said gently. The sale was illegal. I've reclaimed it. She closed the folder and stared at me, her lips pale. How long have you known? Since the day you called from the doctor's office. You knew, and you still let me move in, let me cry, let me work nights cleaning floors. Wes, why? She whispered. Because you needed to learn what no amount of money could teach you. The value of what you lost. Angela's tears spilled over, but they were different this time. They weren't from guilt or fear. They were from understanding. You let me fall, she said, voice breaking. I let you find your feet, I replied. If I had rescued you too soon, you'd never have learned to stand. The Mr. Peterson quietly added, Your mother has already paid off your debts and retrieved all the assets that were taken. You are completely free now, Miss Brooks. Angela looked at me again, her face a storm of gratitude, pain, and awe. Mom, do you forgive me? I forgave you long before you asked, I said. The real question is, can you forgive yourself? She nodded through her tears. I'm going to try. When we left Mr. Peterson's office that day, the air felt lighter, like stepping out of a storm into spring sunshine. Angela and I walked side by side, neither speaking at first. Cars passed, people hurried by, but everything felt muted, distant. Then as we reached the corner, she stopped. Mom, she said softly, if you had really been poor, if you hadn't had all that money hidden away, I think I still would have learned the same lesson. I looked at her, surprised. What lesson, darling? That nothing is worth more than love that doesn't give up on you. When I had no one, I realized that all I ever needed was you. My throat tightened. You don't owe me anything, Angela. I didn't do this for gratitude. I know, she said. That's what makes it so powerful. You taught me what real strength looks like. We walked the rest of the way home in silence, the kind that heals instead of divides. Over the next few weeks, the house filled with a quiet rhythm again. Angela insisted on keeping her cleaning job, even though she now knew she didn't have to. Are you sure? I asked one afternoon as she tied her hair back, ready for another late shift. You don't need to prove anything anymore. I do, Mom, she said, but not to you, to myself. I need to finish what I started. I need to earn back the pride I threw away. She had changed, completely. She was no longer the spoiled, self-centered woman who once valued money over love. There was a new fire in her, calm and bright. Aurora came by that evening, as she often did. She poured herself tea, leaned back in the chair, and watched Angela packing her work bag. Antonia, she said quietly, when Angela came back, most of us thought you'd never take her in again. We said, no mother could forgive that. But look at you both now. I smiled. Forgiveness doesn't erase pain, Aurora, it just stops it from growing. Aurora nodded. Still, what you did, it's rare. You let her face her consequences, but you didn't abandon her. You were firm and loving at the same time. She smiled warmly. That's not punishment, Antonia. That's wisdom. I didn't answer right away. I simply looked at Angela's old bedroom door, now open, light spilling out, music playing softly from her phone as she got ready for work. Robert would have known what to do, I whispered. Aurora smiled knowingly. Maybe he did. Maybe that's exactly what you've been doing all along. As months passed, life found a new balance neither of us could have imagined. Angela finished her cleaning contract and soon got promoted to a full-time position at the community clinic, handling paperwork and helping families who'd lost everything, just like she once did. One evening, she came home holding a letter. Mom, she said, smiling with watery eyes, the university accepted me. I start my master's program in social work next semester. I stood up, hugged her, and for the first time in a long time, I felt Robert's presence in that embrace. Are you sure you want to do this now? I asked. We can easily afford your tuition. Angela shook her head. No, Mom. I'm paying for this myself, with my savings. I want to earn every bit of this life I'm rebuilding. Her voice was steady, proud. Aurora visited that same afternoon and listened as Angela told her about the program. When she left, she turned to me and said, Antonia, I owe you an apology. Whatever for. When you first told me what you'd done. How you let Angela think you were broke. I thought you were cruel. But now I think you were the wisest mother I've ever met. I chuckled softly. Cruelty would have been letting her keep living the way she was. This way, she found her heart again. Aurora nodded. She's not the same woman who went to Europe, is she? No, I said. That Angela died the day she realized love can't be sold. 6 months later, I saw proof of it. Angela was sitting in the living room, surrounded by folders for her classes, her hair tied back, her eyes bright with purpose. She looked up at me. Mom, I went grocery shopping this morning, she said. There's a single mother from the clinic who can't afford daycare, so I bought her some essentials. I smiled. Out of your own pocket? Of course, she said. Some things are too important to wait for a charity fund. Her generosity reminded me of Robert. The same quiet, instinctive kindness. That night, we sat together on the porch, our favorite ritual. The stars were thick and golden, the ocean breeze gentle against our faces. Mom, Angela said suddenly, I got a letter from Edward. My muscles tensed. Edward, yes, from prison. He's serving time in France for that fake marriage. He says he's sorry for everything. And how do you feel about that? Angela leaned back thoughtful. Nothing. No anger. No sadness. Just nothing. That part of my life feels like someone else's story now. Are you going to reply? No, she said, because the woman he wrote to doesn't exist anymore. I turned to look at her, and for the first time, I saw the strength that had once been buried under pride. She wasn't just my daughter anymore. She was her own person, whole and wise. You know what I realized, Mom, she said softly. True love doesn't tell you what you want to hear. It teaches you what you need to learn even when it hurts. Edward made me feel special, but you and Dad taught me what real love is. Love that corrects you, even when it breaks your heart. Tears filled my eyes, but this time they were warm. That's exactly what your father would have said. The next day was Sunday, our day for the beach house. It had taken Angela months to work up the courage to go back. When we arrived, she stood on the porch for a long moment, just breathing. "It looks the same," she said finally. "But I'm not the same person who sold it." Inside, she walked through each room, running her fingers over the furniture, the photographs, the little shells Robert used to collect. "I'm sorry, Mom," she said quietly, "not just for selling it, but for not valuing what it stood for." "It's forgiven," I said, and I meant it. We spent the day cleaning, cooking, and laughing again. As the sun set, we sat together on the porch Robert built with his own hands, watching the sky turn pink and gold over the ocean. "Mom," Angela said suddenly, "I have an idea. What if we turn this house into a shelter, a place for women who are starting over, just like I did?" I looked at her, tears welling. "I think your father would love that." "I can manage it through my social work program," she said. "What can use part of the foundation funds to maintain it." "That's perfect, Angela," I whispered. "The best sanctuaries are the ones that welcome others." She smiled. "Then this house can help people the way you helped me." That night, as I lay in bed, the sea murmuring outside the window, I whispered to Robert, "We did it, my love." She understands now. And in the stillness, I could almost hear him reply, warm and proud. You always knew how to guide her. Justice had come, not through revenge, but through redemption. Not as punishment, but as transformation. Angela and I hadn't just rebuilt a home. We had rebuilt each other. We didn't win back wealth. We gained something greater. A bond stronger than loss, richer than inheritance, and unshakable by any future storm. And that's how Antonia turned her pain into wisdom. She didn't seek revenge, she sought redemption. Her daughter, Angela, didn't just learn about loss. She learned about love, respect, and what it truly means to start over. Sometimes, the people who hurt us the most don't need punishment. They need time to understand the weight of what they've done. And Antonia, she gave her daughter exactly that. A lesson that money could never buy. Pause. Emotional beat. If this story touched your heart, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Your stories matter here. Don't forget to subscribe, tap that notification bell, and share this video with someone who believes that love can heal even the deepest betrayal. The music swells gently because forgiveness isn't weakness. It's the strongest form of love there is. Fade out with on-screen text. With love and respect. May's Stories.